When Elena Martinez returned to her small Colorado town after 12 years in the army, it felt familiar, but it no longer felt like home. She'd spent years hearing the same questions in her head. Who am I now? What am I supposed to do without the uniform? Though no one could see it, she carried the invisible weight of her experiences with her every single day. The town was peaceful, a quiet cluster of wide streets framed by the blue mountains. Her parents' house looked exactly the same wooden porch, the same rocking chair that creaked with every gust of wind. But Elena, who had weathered sandstorms in Afghanistan and spent endless nights in hangars in Iraq, just couldn't fit back into that quiet landscape. She spent her first few days back barely speaking. Her body was still on military time, waking her up before dawn as if an invisible sergeant were still shouting commands inside her mind. She would walk to Pinecrest Lake and just stand there, staring at the water. Sometimes she thought she heard the faint echo of helicopter rotors, but it was always just a hawk gliding silently above the mountains. The silence, which should have been calming, just felt too big, too empty. Talking to people wasn't any easier. Her childhood friends had all taken different paths. One was a teacher, another owned the local bakery, and others had moved far away. Elena felt that every conversation would hit a slight pause, a moment of awkward silence whenever she mentioned anything about her military life. It was like a wall she couldn't break through. Then, everything changed one Thursday afternoon. She was in her father's garage, getting her hands dirty, adjusting the transmission of his old F-150 pickup, when she heard small footsteps behind her. It was Matteo, the neighbor's son, a curious little boy who never went anywhere without his favorite toy helicopter. He looked at her, then at the truck, and asked bluntly, "Is it true you fixed real helicopters?" Elena froze for a second. The question threw her back to her first day as a mechanic, covered in oil and pure nerves. A small smile spread across her face. "I fixed them and took care of them," she replied gently. "They were like my teammates. If they failed, it meant someone might not make it home." Matteo sat right down on the concrete floor, completely fascinated. He peppered her with questions for almost an hour. It was the most natural, easy conversation Elena had had since she got back, and for the first time she felt useful again, even without her uniform. The following week, the local school principal gave her a call. She asked if Elena would be willing to speak to the students about her experience. Not about battles or combat, but about teamwork, discipline, and perseverance. Elena hesitated. A part of her wasn't sure she wanted to relive that part of her story, but something told her to say yes. The day of the talk, she stepped into the small school gym. Her hands were cold, her nerves on edge. The students sat on the floor, looking up at her, waiting. She took a deep breath and began. "Serving," she started, her voice a little shaky at first, "isn't about being invincible. It's about learning to fail, to get back up, and to trust the person standing right beside you. She told them simple stories about fixing a helicopter in the pouring rain with her team, about how a diverse group of people with different skills can come together to save lives, and how even the hardest days can teach you something valuable. The students listened in complete silence. When she finished, a young girl approached her and said that she wanted to study aerospace engineering, and that Elena's story gave her hope. That single comment touched her more deeply than any round of applause ever could. After that talk, the idea started to build. The principal, Mateo's father, and several other neighbors began insisting, "Why don't you teach mechanics here? You're a natural at it." And just like that, the idea of a community workshop was born. With the town's help, they cleaned out an old, forgotten warehouse down by the lake. They painted the walls a fresh, bright color, brought in donated tools, and hung motivational photos on the walls. Elena gave her first class on a Saturday morning to 6 nervous teenagers, gathered around a dismantled engine and a box of scattered tools. Mechanics, she told them, isn't just about fixing things. It's about understanding how they work, and that includes understanding yourself. Soon, the workshop was filled with laughter, with questions, and with the metallic clang of tools. Elena began to feel that life was slowly giving her color back, filling in the gray spaces that had taken over. But not everything was easy. There were still hard nights. Some nights, she'd wake up drenched in sweat, remembering names, voices, and moments she desperately wanted to forget. On one of those nights, she went outside to the porch and found her mother waiting, as if she just knew. "You don't have to carry everything alone, Mia," her mother said softly, using the Spanish term of endearment. "You're not on a base anymore. You have a team here too." And in that moment, Elena cried, a deep, freeing cry that she had been holding in 4 years. The next morning, for the first time, she felt she could truly begin building a new life. Months later, as she was closing the workshop at the end of the day, she saw the sunset reflected on the tools hanging neatly on the wall. The students she had taught were now out in the community, fixing bicycles, lawnmowers, even the boat engines for people in town. The workshop had taken on a life of its own. She realized then that her last patrol hadn't been in some far-off, war-torn country. It had been a patrol inside herself, a long and difficult journey searching for a way back to the person she wanted to be. And now, finally, surrounded by the hum of her town and the legacy she was building, Elena Martínez felt she had truly, finally, come home. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, please give it a like and subscribe for more content that matters. See you next time.